Welcome back to gaelicfantv. It is the Dublin Senior Football Championship preview ahead of the 2025 All-Ireland and League football season. We're going to be looking ahead to the Dublin footballers and the Dublin hurlers ahead of the 2025 season. 2024 was an interesting year for the Dublin footballers. The league looked so good at different stages. You know, Dublin were looking so good, so strong, winning games, beating the likes of Kerry, getting big wins on the table, wins away to the likes of Derry en route to the final. They lost in the league final via a penalty shootout. They then came back and won the Leinster Championship, which, you know, was a huge surprise and everything else. And then they went into the group stages and looked fairly decent. All right, maybe a little bit, you know, ropey against Mayo at different times. And then Galway just came and shook up the world, you know, Nate Diaz style. They just decided to completely beat us out of absolutely nowhere, when maybe some people expected it, and maybe some people can look back at it now and think like, wow, like that was unreal. But at the time, not many people expected it, in all honesty. We will touch on the hurlers as well. Mixed year for the Dublin hurlers. Some good moments in there, beating Galway, but ultimately it kind of ended the same way a lot of years end for the Dublin hurlers in recent seasons, which is in disappointment. But yeah, Seamus, Dublin footballers. I mean, here we go again, another year, and it feels, I don't know, it feels different going into next year, doesn't it?
Well, a lot's changed, and yeah, like I feel like we might be in for a different few years than what we've been blessed with over the last decade in terms of the success that we've had. I don't think we'll have the same amount of success over the next decade. I would be amazed if we can, get a team that's as good as the team that we had in the 2010s. But I still think there will be success in the next few years for Dublin. It just depends, on circumstances, and can we keep players in the country and everything like that. With the offers coming in for AFL players, if we can keep all our best players here, I think we have a good chance of success. The hurling is definitely interesting as well. Obviously, first year without Owen O'Donnell now from the start. I know he did play for the footballers a couple of years ago, but that was when the hurlers were out of the championship. This time he's gone full commitment. He's going with the footballers, which has been a real, consistent team in why Dublin, in my opinion, haven't been achieving what we are capable of. Like, a lot of people would look at Dublin and say, well, Dublin aren't, one of the big counties in hurling. We're not as of right now, but I would look at Dublin and say, that's a real sleeping giant right there in terms of in hurling, like what we're capable of if the whole county got behind the hurling team and the resources, and we managed to get our best players to commit to playing hurling. We could be capable of a lot more than we are currently performing at. Very similar to Cork in the football, I would say. So yeah, looking forward to diving into this. It's definitely different than it was last year. I think I was a lot more pessimistic actually last year, which is really interesting. I just thought, that would have been the end. I thought that, after the All-Ireland win, I thought, yeah, I think I can see the lads walking away now. Whereas this time, yeah, I'm not sure what to expect over the next year. Pessimistic is the wrong word, actually. I meant optimistic. I would have been more optimistic this time last year.
Yeah, I was actually just looking at my transcript there as well, and I didn't mean to say Dublin Senior Football Championship. We won't be previewing the Dublin Senior Football Championship. We will be previewing the footballers, though. The footballers ahead of 2025.
I was saying, you're well on time for the Dublin Club Championship for next season.
Yeah, getting a bit too excited there, just skipping over the entirety of the county championship, and everything else. But yeah, I mean, like, I thought, like, fair enough. Like, we lost to Galway last year. We've obviously had a couple of retirements: Brian Fenton, James McCarthy. There are some question marks still over other players as well. Like, I mean, there's going to be a question mark over Cluxton probably until the Leinster semi-final, when he just appears out of nowhere, like Hulk Hogan, as he so often does. I mean, he was involved in the new rules games, but then again, James McCarthy was as well. So it's kind of,
isn't it, that's his last game in Croke Park,
and it was an absolute mauling.
He got demolished by Connacht. Oh no, he had the game against Munster.
You did have the one after, yeah.
I mean, that wasn't much better though, was it?
No. Like, I mean, it's but look, to be fair, I think he was just doing his friends Jim Gavin a few favors
Yeah.
by jumping on. But yeah, like, I mean, there's question marks over Jack McCaffrey, some other players as well. Like, I mean, you've obviously got Mick Fitz and Con O'Callaghan, who are probably going to miss, I would say, large chunks of the league, obviously with club commitments and everything else.
Mick Fitz isn't playing the league. He'll do
Yeah,
what he did last year. Like last year during the league, man, Mick Fitz was playing league
played
matches.
once maybe. Yeah.
He's playing like junior league matches and intermediate league matches and all this, like just
Mm.
staying fit. He will play no part in the league. Whether he plays a part in the championship or not, who knows? It's one of those things where you had your question marks over the people who have walked away before, like your Cluxton, like your Paul Mannion, like your Jack McCaffrey. You were looking at them and thinking, are they going to walk away again? Especially when James McCarthy knocked the first domino down. And then when Fenton went away, it was like anybody could go now. All of a sudden, you're looking at anybody who's hovering around 30 years of age, and they're all potential retirements now. So it's going to be a very, I'd say, uncertain few months for most Dublin fans, not really knowing what to expect.
Yeah, I mean, like, are we maybe getting a little bit carried away though at the same time with the negativity? I mean, like, at the same time, Dublin were All-Ireland champions 2 years ago. Last season, for large parts, they were unbelievable. Like, I actually think for majority of last year, they were actually better than what they actually were.
Agreed.
Coincidentally in 2023. And it's actually kind of funny because it was at the quarter-final stage in 2023 where Dublin clicked into gear and, became the best team in the country from that point on. But up until that point, they'd been very, very flaky, like barely beat Kildare. You'll remember in Leinster, like, nearly lost that game. The draw with Roscommon as well.
That was the worst one.
Yeah, like there was a lot of very, very poor performances. Even though we got promoted from Division 2, we didn't look great at all. Like, there were some very, very underwhelming performances in there. Like, you remember the Clare game as well, in Crow Park. And then last season wasn't like that at all. Like, in the league, we were absolutely brilliant, absolutely flying. We started a little bit slow, like we lost to Monaghan, but I remember even when we lost to Mayo, I seen enough there after that game where I was like, and I remember even making the match reaction, and I was actually quite positive about Dublin. I was thinking, like, I think we're definitely not going to get relegated here. Now, for us to go on the run that we did in the league, was probably a little bit surprising. But we obviously go and do that. We get to the league final, and then throughout the championship, very, very good as well. So, like, where do you think, is it because Brian Fenton's retired? Like, is that just the one that's really like a bit of a punch to the gut for Dublin fans? Because, like, he felt like he was in his prime. He was playing every game. He was the one player you didn't think was going to retire. I thought he was nailed on to be the next Dublin captain as well, to be honest with you. But yeah, he's retired.
Yeah, and like, I mean, we definitely didn't see it coming, but at the same time, I wasn't like knocked off my chair, shocked. Like, it's weird because I do mean it. Dublin, in a lot of senses, kind of, there's not much left to prove. You've broken all the records. Like, you've the most Leinster titles in a row. You've nearly killed the whole championship because you've won it so many times. Then they've won 6 All-Ireland titles in a row, and Fenton personally has won 8 All-Ireland titles. Like, you are absolutely, like, sorry, 7 All-Ireland titles. He wasn't there for 2013's one. But you are absolutely immortal in terms of what you've achieved in your career. Fenton won Footballer of the Year twice, wasn't it? Like, how many players have done that? Like, he's up there with the elite of the elite. And the reality is that since Fenton broke onto the scene at 22 years of age in 2015, he's been the nailed-on starter. He's had that number 8 jersey for every game that he's played for Dublin. And that means that he has been man-marked, targeted, more or less in every game that he's played, club and county. Against Kerry, he's always had Jack Barry on him. Against Mayo, he's always had someone like Seamus O'Shea on him. And I've no doubt that gets extremely tiring, especially when you're trying to live your personal life alongside that. Since 22 years of age, Brian Fenton's entire summers have been dedicated to playing Gaelic football for Dublin. And because Dublin have gone far into the championship every time, it's meant that more or less his entire summer has been spent playing Gaelic football. As people say, as the saying goes, he owes us nothing. So me personally, I just think he retired to live his life. I mean, like he has a partner. And I think he probably just wants to go see the world. I think Dublin getting knocked out of the championship at the quarter-final stage gave Fenton an opportunity to actually do something with his July and his August that he hasn't done for a long, long time. And I think he might have got a sense of what life might be like without Gaelic football. And I think he might have liked it. I don't think that this is a retirement for good. I think you can clip this up in 2 years when he comes back. I think that Fenton will come back in a similar way to how Michael Murphy has come back. But I just think he needs a break. I think he needs a rest because we've never really seen Brian Fenton taken off either, have we?
No.
He plays every minute of every game for both club and county, and he's one of the most important players on that pitch, arguably the most important player on the pitch for every team he plays for. I've no doubt that's exhausting. He needs a rest, and I'm delighted for him personally that he has taken a rest. For the Dublin football team, I'm not delighted that he's taken a rest because it's a massive body blow to the team. It is the first position that you would fill for the Dublin team over the last 10 years. Number 8, Brian Fenton. And the fact now that he's gone means that all of a sudden the whole structure of the team needs to be looked at because that's a massive vacuum that's just been taken out. And you can't just throw Peadar O'Cofaigh-Byrne in or Adam Waddick in and just expect them to do what Brian Fenton did for the Dublin team. You now need to think about how you're going to utilize your midfield and get the best out of who Peadar O'Cofaigh-Byrne or Adam Waddick or Killian McGuinness is. You cannot expect them to be Brian Fenton because nobody is Brian Fenton. So it's such a massive body blow to the whole team. I'm going to be very interested to see who stays and who goes as well before the league actually kicks off. 2021 definitely scarred us, man. 2022, sorry, definitely scarred us because now it feels like anytime Dublin don't look $1 million, relegation is I'm looking at it being like, I don't rule it out after what happened in 2022. Realistically, I think we're going to finish slap bang in the middle in the league this year. I think we're going to finish 4th or 5th. Nothing to write home about, but solid enough. And we'll win Leinster again. As for the All-Ireland, I'm really not sure at this point. I put us in the category of the teams that can win it. Like we were talking about who could win it, but I would look and say, I'd say right at this moment, I'd say we might be a step behind a Donegal or something like that. I think we might be a step behind them. But especially with McGuinness now entering his second year, and we all know what he did in his second year last time. But yeah, he's a huge blow. And I think that the fact that he left and nobody was expecting him to leave, all of a sudden people are looking at people that you wouldn't be surprised if they go, like Mick Fitz, like Stephen Cluxton, like Jack McCaffrey, like Paul Mannion. And all of a sudden you're thinking, when are they going to go? Maybe they'll go this year. The reality is the next 3 years is going to be a big time of transition for Dublin.
Yeah, and it's Dessie Farrell's last year as well on his term. Whether he's obviously going to be there in 2025, we know that, but whether he'll be there beyond next year's championship, looks very unlikely. But yeah, as you said, Fenton, he's achieved it all. And how many players at the age of 31, 30 can retire and have won as much as he's won? Do you know, as you said, 7 All-Irelands, 2-time Footballer of the Year.
He's lost 3 matches.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. And to be fair, he probably could have nearly retired sooner, in all honesty, when you actually think about it, because he's done it all, he's achieved it all. He's nothing left to prove. His body's still in very, very good shape as well. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like you look at James McCarthy, who looks like he's been through the absolute wars and had so many injury problems, and obviously he's a good bit older than Brian Fenton and been playing for a lot longer, obviously, as well. And for Fenton, he does have that maybe option in a couple of years, maybe to come back. But looking at that midfield, I mean, there's a lot of question marks because let's not forget, McCarthy, he would often play midfield as well. Like, I know he obviously would play wing back a lot of the times, but he would move into midfield, and he would, almost be that extra man in midfield sometimes.
Well, that's the big question, because one of the massive questions this season is how kickouts are going to look for Dublin. Because we might not have Cluxton kicking them this year. It might be O'Hanlon, it might be Comerford. And who are they going to be kicking it to? It's not Brian Fenton anymore, and it's not James McCarthy anymore. Right now, who would you pick as your midfield pairing? Say if Dublin were playing a match tomorrow. You have the cooler boys back. Who are you picking?
Yeah, like I'd put Brian Howard in there personally, and then like after that, it's like you'd probably go Patrick Byrne.
Yeah, I'd pick.
Like
I'd have
maybe
Howard in the half forward
as well. Yeah,
I'd have Howard either wing back or wing forward.
Yeah,
and then I'd go Patter Byrne at 8 and Killian McGuinness at 9.
I think so.
Killian McGuinness is a bit more of a road runner, the same way that McCarthy was. And I think O'Coffey Byrne might be able to provide the power and the size, and McGuinness might be able to provide the running.
Yeah, I think McGuinness is definitely a player from what I've seen that has the potential. Like, he's been unbelievable with Skerry's Harps. He's got that physical stature. He's got that kind of...
He's got pace. He's brave as well, man. He's brave. Like, I've watched him play in Parnell Park against Crokes and Bowden, and he's very much, he carries the fight for Skerry's to teams. Like, he's a leader, and Dublin will need leaders this year.
Yeah, and like there are obviously a few other players like you could look at. Like, you have Tom Lahiff, who's obviously there as well. Like, he's kind of been there and done it over the last couple of years. I think like with him, he keeps it simple. Like, he keeps it simple. He's not as flashy as a Brian Fenton. Don't get me wrong, Brian Fenton used to keep it simple as well, but he was just so good that he made it look simple. Without even, he was a Rolls Royce of a footballer. So like you still have that option, but yeah, like it's a massive gap, isn't it, in that midfield as well? And then you're thinking like, obviously at wing back, like when we're at our prime and we're going into All Ireland semi-finals and these stages, you would have had James McCarthy in it, probably wing back. Now you're not going to have him there. Jack McCaffrey, there's obviously doubts with it as well. In terms of will he come back? So like there's a lot of room for new faces to come in there.
Are all those lads still the best, in your opinion? Is Cluxton still the best goalkeeper we have? I'm open to your answer on that.
It's hard. See, last year is very hard to know because you couldn't really judge it. Like, he played his games in Leinster. I didn't think he played particularly well, to be honest with you. But again, he's had a complete year off because he obviously hasn't been playing. I know he's been playing a few club games here and there, but he plays mostly as an outfielder, so he doesn't play in goal. And then you're looking at, he wasn't obviously involved in the league. He certainly didn't set the world alight, but I do remember thinking very similar in 23 as well. When he first came back, I thought he looked very rusty at the start. And then the more it went on, the more he came into his prime. And I think the thing about Cluxton is he looks after himself so well. He knows his body inside and out. It's no surprise that we get to an All-Ireland final and, he's walking up to kick the first point, and he's like, it's almost a flashback to Cluxton of a couple of years ago. Like, he definitely doesn't have the range on his kickouts now. Like, what is he? He's 40, 43, is he? 42?
43, 44 now. He's kicked.
Like, it's mental, really. Like, I think,
I'll
to be
find
honest,
out exactly how old he is, just so I'm 100% sure.
Like, I probably would go with Dave O'Hanlon, to be honest with you. Like, if I had to be, and I know maybe people would say that's disrespectful to Stephen Cluxton
43.
and everything else, but like, Dave O'Hanlon was very, very good. I felt like the season previous, like, he was making big saves. He doesn't, like, he obviously doesn't have the kick out skills or the range and everything else of Cluxton in his prime, but not many goalkeepers do.
No,
to be honest.
he does.
Yeah, like let's be honest.
The closest
You've got Rory Began and Noel Morgan, these lads, but you've got very, very few of them knocking about. Yeah, to be honest with you,
they're 2 and 3, by the way, but nobody's Cluxton. Nobody's as good as Cluxton was. And my personal thing is like, I personally think Cluxton, it's quite harsh to say this, but I just think Cluxton is in love with the sport so much. I think he'll find it hard to walk away for good. Like, I think he genuinely was done when he walked away in 2021, and then I feel like he just missed it so much. So he would have wanted to come back. And especially knowing how competitive he is, knowing how much he is just a born winner to his core. I think seeing Kerry win in 2022, I think a lot of the Dubs wanted to, prove that they're the best team of this era. Not just by winning the 6 in a row, but by also beating what a lot of people thought would be the next team. Do you know what I mean? It's like a UFC champion or something beating who goes on to be the next champion. It's like, wow, you beat the best of the next generation as well. And Kerry were, going for back-to-back All-Irelands, and David Clifford was Footballer of the Year, and, in absolutely sensational form. So, look, the reality is, again, I agree with you. I was happy with O'Hanlon. Like, I watched O'Hanlon in that Cork game make that save from Brian Hurley, like that absolutely sensational save, and then make that save against Derry as well when he was sprinting back and he managed to palm it away. His kickouts are really good. His free taking is really good. And I was just like, yeah, I think this is the guy. I think this is the guy to pass the mantle to. And look, the reality is, if I was Desi Farrell, I would be begging Stephen Cluxton to stay, but I wouldn't have him as my number one. I'd put David O'Hanlon in there, and I'd say, Stephen, can you stay and tell this guy everything you know? Like, can you pass on your knowledge to this guy? Because there's no better coach you could ever have for a GA goalkeeper than Stephen Cluxton. And the knowledge that he has and the professionalism that he has and the way he looked after himself and the way he treated the game. And if David O'Hanlon can soak up all that information from him, I think he's a more than capable deputy. And the point is, we are going to have to do it eventually.
Yeah.
Fenton has walked away. James McCarthy has walked away. Like it or not, we're in transition right now. So at this point, I'm like, you know what? We might as well just go full reboot now.
I agree as well. Like, and I think the problem is you've got Desi, who's going into his last year, and I think he's not I don't know if he's thinking of the long-term projects. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if he's thinking beyond 2025. Like, I don't think he's thinking, right, well, let's not go with Cluxton this year. If we go with Dave O'Hanlon, maybe we might take a hit in the small term. Personally, I don't even know if it will be that big of a difference personally. Maybe in an All-Ireland final or something of that nature, or a semi-final. Like, Cluxton obviously has his moments, as we very well know, and I think he brings a calmness to the rest of the defence. In fairness, and I think the statistics obviously prove that in 23 when he came in the championship versus we were conceding goals for fun throughout the league. So obviously he does bring a bit of a calmness there. In fairness,
he brings discipline as well. You know what I'm saying? I saw that in the All-Ireland final against Kerry, where Clifford had won a free, and I think Howard walked past, and Howard said something to Clifford, like, I think he said, like, yeah, you played it up, or it was something like that. Clifford said something back that was cheeky, and Howard immediately went to get involved with him. And Cluxton, I watched, because I was in the stadium that day, I watched it. Cluxton sprints out of the goal, grabs Howard, and pulls him away from any confrontation. And you look at the way that Dublin melted against Mayo in the 2021 All-Ireland semi-final, get like with the amount of off the ball stuff and getting into fights and everything. Cluxton wasn't there. And I feel like maybe it still would have happened, but I feel like he would have helped us to, keep the heads when everything was falling apart.
Yeah, like, do you think, like with Dessie Farrell obviously as well, because like you have Jack McCaffrey, who, as we said, is kind of been in and out as well. But is it like a massive risk at the same time though? Like, because like it does look like he's just trying to cash in with these older players, like try and get the absolute best, try and maybe drag another All-Ireland out of his team. But in the long run, like, could I have, like, don't get me wrong, like, Dublin is a huge county. There's always going to be club players like Brian Fenton, was not an underage star. He wasn't really a player that many people were even thinking about, like when we were looking at underage players. And Jim Gavin brought him in and he turned into an absolute superstar. So I'm sure there are other players out there that maybe someone could, maybe Desi can find, and who knows what can happen. Like it's when big players step away that other players can step up, and then you can see what they're made of. And we've
There's a
obviously
lot
saw
of
it with
players.
Dublin in the
On that
past.
note, man, over the last 2 years, we've had so many players, especially around 2016 to 2019. We had a lot of players coming from under 20 and minor that were ripping it up, and you were just like, bad timing. Do you know what I mean? You had like Aaron Byrne won under 21 footballer of the year in 2017, and he would usually get a game in the league, and that was it. Emmett O'Keneela, again, outstanding all through the grades for Dublin. Brilliant in midfield for Lucan Sarsfields. Every year you'd make one appearance in the league, you wouldn't hear from him again. Kieran Archer, like literally shot the lights out at under 20. Not just once, but twice. Like absolutely tore the competition up. No place for him in the senior team. Like we had player after player after player come through over those years that didn't quite get the breaks. And now I'm looking thinking, God, if Aaron Byrne was coming onto the scene now, or if Kieran Archer was coming onto the scene now, they'd be starting. Like, or they get given a fair crack at the whip in the league. So I think for those players, it's a massive opportunity for them to put themselves in consideration now, because players that have come through over the last few years, like players like Lorcan O'Dell, Ross McGarry, that have got game time and have started. As a Dublin fan, as good as Lorcan O'Dell and Ross McGarry are, I didn't have them on as high a level as I had Archer on and Aaron Byrne. I don't know. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, I would to a certain extent.
But it's just the timing now is different. Now we need fresh blood in the team.
Yeah. Well, it was like one of them things. I mean, Colin Basquel was ripping it up for Ballyboden for years.
How many years did it take him to get in?
Yeah, like, and it took him years to get in. You think back to 2018 and 2019, and you had players like on the bench, Bernard Brogan, Kevin McManaman, Paddy Andrews. Like you could literally feel two Dublin teams.
Start a final to save his life in the 20 points, no matter how good he was. 23 was his first final starting.
Yeah, like it's insane. Like,
just we had so much talent, and yeah, I'd be interested, man. What would your starting team be? Do you know what your starting team would be tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one to kind of name off the top, but like if you're thinking, you'd probably go.
Well, we try, mate. Say we're both selected.
Yeah. Well, like we'll go through it. Like I think Dave O'Hanlon.
I'm happy with.
Yeah, then you're looking at the full back line.
Theo Clancy 3 for me.
Yeah, I'd have Lee Gannon definitely in there, probably a 2. Then you're probably looking
or
Lee Gannon a 4. Lee Gannon a 4. Sorry, and then you're looking at.
I'd go
probably Mick Fitz a full back still.
I'd still go Mick Fitz. Mick at 2, Theo Clancy 3, and maybe Lee at 4. Halfbacks. Merchant's in there for me.
Yeah, Merchant definitely.
John Small at 6.
John Small, Brian Howard probably.
And Brian Howard, yeah. I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
O'Coffey, Byrne, and McGuinness for me. Killian McGuinness.
Yeah, I'd probably go with that as well. Yeah, I probably would. Like, I mean, there's gonna be other players in there that are gonna get drafted in that we probably don't even know about.
Yeah,
like you mentioned Adam Waddock, I think a little bit earlier. Like for Thomas Davis, like he was knocking on the door for years. Hasn't really got too much of a look in under Desi, so I don't really know if he is going to be the man to come in there. But yeah, I probably would have to go Patrick Hufford-Byrne and Killian McGuinness at this moment in time. Yeah. As I mentioned, Tom Lahiff. Like at least Tom Lahiff, you know what you're getting with him.
Lahiff.
He does bring a bit more experience to that midfield, and I do think that is a little bit important as well. But look, McGuinness, obviously, like, I mean, look, he hasn't played enough for the Dublin senior footballers yet, so we have to see a bit more of him. But I think the league, look, I mean, the league is the perfect breeding ground for a player of
The
that
other thing
quality.
about that pairing is that they're both young, like they're both in their mid-20s. There's serious potential for what they could do together. Then our half forwards, I'd probably go Bugler, Kilkenny, and you see, it's difficult to pick.
This is when you run into the holes
Bugler and
now. You
Kilkenny
don't
get in now. Bugler and Kilkenny get in.
100%, yeah.
Is Scully
Probably
still
no Scully,
starting?
maybe, yeah.
Is he still there for you?
I think he is. Like, I'm even looking at the Dublin team now, and I'm thinking like the options definitely have dried up in comparison to previous years. Like, I wonder, maybe you're looking at someone like a Ross Keogh from the under-20s who looked really good last season, who maybe might make the step up. But yeah, I think it would have to be, like, if you're going into an
We're
all,
going into a game tomorrow where we have to win.
Yeah, I probably would go with that three at that moment. Yeah,
or you could probably go Kilkenny to the left and Mannion at centre.
You could do that as well, yeah.
And then maybe a full... Yeah, I think I'll do that. And then I'll go Cormac Costello, Colin Pascal and Con O'Callaghan in the middle.
Yeah.
As my front. And that's still a very good team. That's still a very good team.
Yeah.
That's why I agree with what you said when it comes to there's no need to panic. But we aren't we don't have the same aura that we had definitely in 2020, I'd say. 2020, we won that All-Ireland. It felt like without breaking sweat.
Because even when you mention that team and then you're looking at players who can come off the bench, you've got like a Killian O'Gara maybe who could come on and do something, but like the options are they're it's definitely the most thin the squad has looked, and that's why obviously there is going to be new players who will come in.
Well, I would look at Archer and Byrne and go, those two lads showed serious potential. Like they have to get given a shot, like a good shot in this team.
Yeah, I'd love to see Conor McHugh get a goal as well. Like he was outstanding. I know he plays a bit of hurling as well, but like I think he was outstanding for Nafina. I'd love to see him get a shot.
Darren Mullen as well. Kilmacud, he's been brilliant for years. You could even see a definitely one that we haven't even discussed, but like if Desi's just gone, I don't give a toss about a long-term project. I just want to win the All-Ireland. And Fenton definitely won't come back. Then you could honestly see a situation where you could have Craig Diaz in there.
Yeah.
I think you could also have a situation where actually Senan Forker from Castleknock could be there. I was very impressed by him. Big lad as well.
Yeah. Like I was going to say that as well. Like he was obviously a very good player as well.
Greg McEnany, another one that kind of was around the team. Got that goal against Derry in the league final as well. Like Paddy Small is another. He's a threat off the bench that we have.
Still there, yeah.
Like I think off the bench, you're looking at Paddy Small. Like our best players this season coming off the bench, I think will be Paddy Small, Lorcan O'Dell, Scully. I think maybe if I was being honest, I'd probably start Scully. I don't think Scully has as much of an impact off the bench maybe as Costello would. Then again, who takes, like, Costello needs to be in there to take the freeze. I mean, like, this is what I'm saying, man. We're going to,
who do you think?
I think personally, when it comes to comparing this Dublin team, I think we're going to go into a period that will be very, very, very similar to the period that Kerry went into in the 2010s, where they had that crop of Declan O'Sullivan, Darren O'Sullivan, Paul Galvin, Kieran Donaghy, Colin Cooper. Like, they had all them who were starting to tick into 31, 32. And they had the lads behind them like James O'Donoghue, like Fionn Fitzgerald, like Johnny Buckley, like the new crop. And they had them behind them. Paul Murphy as well was a big part of that team. But they had them lads behind them. And it was like a real difficult task for years for Kerry, especially around 2013, to balance that team correctly between the experience and the youth. And Fitzmaurice, I thought, did a really good job. And I thought he got very underrated, in my opinion, in terms of how he did that job. He won the All-Ireland, and he very close to winning a second one in 2015, and just ran into the best team of all time over the end of the 2010s. So yeah, I think Dublin will be in a similar situation where it will be a difficult act to do, to balance what we currently have with what we will have to move to over the next decade.
One man we haven't mentioned is Owen O'Donnell, who swapped the small ball for the big ball. We were kind of chatting a little bit.
It's crazy to think that's happened.
Yeah, and not for the first time as well. He did it a few years ago as well.
But that one was different, even because we were out in the hurling. This one is like he's gone for it. Like he's fully committed to the football. He won't be playing hurling next season, which would have seemed unthinkable a few years ago.
Yeah, like where does he fit in? Because like we were saying there, like with Whitehall, usually plays like as a full forward. Does he have the pace to play that role for the Dublin senior footballers? I'm not entirely sure. He obviously plays as a full back with the Dublin hurlers.
I would look at the new rules as a big hint as to why he's there.
Is he the target from kickouts, do you think?
He could be. I think he's very, very capable of winning that type of ball. He's a real physical powerhouse. Like, that fella takes a few lads to stop Owen O'Donnell. What he's capable of is second to none. I would look at the new rules where, you get 2 points for the shot outside the 40-meter arc, and you might have a lot of kicks dropping short and pandemonium in the square. And I could see Owen O'Donnell being somebody that is in there to get right in there with the goalkeeper and mix it up and try and cause a few goals to come for Dublin. I could see him doing that. I could see him being launched into full forward at various stages this season. He's a very good footballer, though. And I feel like because of his physical prowess, people underestimate how good a footballer he actually is. He's a very, very accomplished footballer with ball in hand. And yeah, like, personally, I would be interested to know his mindset. Like, is he thinking he's football now? He's a footballer. He's not going back to the hurling. Because if he is, then put him in the team. Like, put him in the starting team, put him midfielder, put him full forward, and let him, get used to this. If you're bringing him in as a decoy, as a plan B for the season, and he's going to go back and play for the hurlers next year, well, like, if this is Desi's, wild card in terms of winning an All-Ireland, then I think we might see him used in a bit of a different way than if he is committing to the footballers for the next 5 years.
Yeah. Do you think this will be Desi's last year?
Fully depends on results. Because I think if Desi was the type that would walk away on a high, he would have walked away in 2023. Because I think, he, in particular, I remember 2021 as well, when players were dropping like flies off the team. A lot of people forget people like Eric Lowndes left. Like, very, very solid footballers left that camp. And this was all under Desi. And I remember hearing a lot of rumors that, things weren't great behind the scenes and the camp wasn't that happy, and it definitely wasn't what it was. Cluxton had walked away. And in my opinion, he's a legend, but Cluxton hung over that season like a dark cloud. Like, you remember every game, it was, is Cluxton retired? Yeah. Is he retired? Is he coming back? And I thought, there's a video that I made at the time where I said, look, they need to just come out and answer it once and for all. Is he out? Is he back? And just stick with one of them, because having this wishy-washy, we don't know what he's doing, is hanging over not only the fans, but the team. Because then the goalkeeper who you actually pick feels like they're just basically a substitute teacher until the real one comes back. And that kind of proved to be the case for David please just announce it. Just
come out
I
and
know
say it.
Cluxon doesn't like publicity, and he definitely wouldn't like the attention he would get for retiring. But you actually make it go on longer if you don't retire, because then people will constantly ask questions about you. Yeah, I feel like, look, this season it'd be interesting. Be interesting. What exactly again was your question? Just to be 100% honest.
Just if you thought it was Desi's last year.
Desi's last year. I said 100% depending on results. I said, like, if you look at it, if Dublin bow out in a similar way that we did last year, I think he's gone.
Yeah. I think,
If
to be
we win
honest
the
with you,
All Ireland,
I think even if Dublin win the All Ireland this year,
I think he'll go either way. Actually, yeah.
I think so. Like, I think he'd be.
I
I
think
think
we
he'd be, I
are.
think he'd be mad. I think he'd be mad to stay. To be honest with you, just with like, because
But
especially when you do look at underage, like, and I know, as we said, like, look, it is a massive county. There is a huge pull in there. There's players in there in club championships who can make the step up. There's no doubt about it. So I don't think Dublin are gonna fall a million miles off and fall into obscurity or anything of that nature. I think we'll always not be a million miles away. We just probably won't be the team that we were, winning 5-6 in a row. But then again, not many other teams are as well. Like, that team really was once in a generation, or probably a once ever, if we're being honest. But I think with Desi, like, I think he does probably see, in terms of underage anyway, there doesn't appear to be a huge amount coming through. Or under 20s haven't been really successful in the last couple of years. We can't seem to get out of Leinster now. Like, so Louth are beating us, Meath are beating us. At minor level as well, I think we've a lot of teams there have gotten the better of us in recent seasons. Kildare under 20 level as well have been very strong as well. And look, I don't think our grip on Leinster at senior level is going to loosen anytime soon. But at the same time, there doesn't appear to be the same level of players coming through. And I think if you're Desi, if you did manage to get another All Ireland out of that Dublin team for this year, it just, that's your third All Ireland. It's the perfect time to step away, really. Like,
yeah, it is. And I think, like, I seen this quote in, did you read that book, The Road to Sam Maguire, around the time of 2011 when Dublin won the All? I think Malachy Clark.
I didn't read the book, but I did see a DVD on it, so I don't know if that was.
I think it's a book. It's stories of how Dublin won the All Ireland in 2011. Brilliant book written by Malachy Clark. And I just remember one quote in the book saying, when it was discussing from 95 to 2011, and it was saying, like, Mickey Whelan was probably the right man at the wrong time in 96. And it said, when the only way is down, it's no fun being the pilot. And the reality is, you look at Alex Ferguson stepping away from Man United, David Moyes comes in, half the squad is over the age of 32, and all of a sudden,
boom, yeah,
it's all hitting the fan now. And I would look at Dublin and go, look, the reality is, this isn't being too pessimistic. Facts are, we moved away from that golden crop in 2021 and in 2022. In 2021, we looked more beatable than we'd ever looked under Jim Gavin, or ever, like, literally more beatable. And then we ultimately lost to Mayo in that All-Ireland semi-final in 2021. And to be honest, because of how much it meant to Mayo to beat Dublin, I feel like a lot of overhyping happened with that game. And I feel like a lot of people were like, what a performance by Mayo. Wasn't a great performance by Mayo. Dublin were bang average, and Mayo were just a little bit better than us on the day. But it wasn't a fantastic performance by Mayo. And that Dublin team of 2021 would have been schooled by the Mayo team of 2017.
Yeah.
So we were way off the pace in 2021. 2022, we were better. But I remember being surprised at how much it felt like we were underdogs against Kerry. Do you remember? Like, it really felt like we were underdogs in that game. Shawnee hits that free. So there was proof there. And I remember highlighting this in my reason for why we could beat Kerry. in the final in 2023, because I was saying, look, if we had Conor Callaghan, Paul Mannion, Stephen Cluxton, I think the three of them are worth a 2-point swing, which would make us the winners. And that's why I picked Dublin to beat Kerry in 2023, which ultimately we won by 2 points. But the reality is we went back to that crop. We got Paul Mannion to come back. We got Stephen Cluxton to come back. We got Jack McCaffrey to come back. Because we were nowhere near where we had been when they were, ripping it up for us. And once they came back, we still stuttered. Like 2023, as you said, we were not impressive at all up until, and at that Roscommon game, I remember being like, my God, like that was a real pretty grim day, because I remember being like, God, we like Mannion was playing, like Jack was playing, Stephen Cluxton was playing, and we still looked shot to bits. Like we looked like we'd no ideas. And all of a sudden, it just, against Mayo, everything just fell into place. All of a sudden, it was like, okay, no, wait, this is still the greatest team that Dublin have ever had. And we tore Mayo apart. Great semi-final performance against a very tricky Monaghan team, and then win the All-Ireland against Kerry. Champagne finish. I thought Dessie would step off the stage, but he didn't. 2024, I think we had a bit of a roll-on effect from the All-Ireland win. We looked unbelievable in the league. And as you said, it happened in reverse. We were amazing in the league. I remember the Kerry game. I was like, wow, like Conor Callaghan's hat-trick. God, we're really unstoppable here now this year. And then the championship came round. The Meath game was one of the weirdest games I've ever been at in my life. The Louth game, we were very ordinary. And then we lose to Galway. And it's just, we fell, at the first, in terms of a knockout, we fell at the first serious test that we ran into. And now you're looking saying, like last time that like Mannion, Cluxton and McCaffrey walked away, we weren't at the level at all. This time we've been hit even harder, in my opinion. Fenton and McCarthy going away, in my opinion, is a bigger blow than them three leaving, which is definitely a hot take. But Fenton and McCarthy were, in my opinion, two of, I'd say, the top three footballers Dublin have ever had. Along with Cluxton. Kevin Heffernan actually would have to be in consideration there. Jimmy Keaveney too. But like you can't argue what those three bring to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I mean, there's a help looking at the overall big picture of the All-Ireland and everything else. Because look, I think with the league, like I'm not really too bothered with the league. Like obviously it's got, great, some great away days there, and maybe I'll ask you that after. But in terms of the overall big picture, which is the All-Ireland, which, we're obviously all looking at as Dublin fans, which we should be, because Dublin, historically over the last 10, 15 years have always been thereabouts. But when you're looking at the All-Ireland itself, I mean, there isn't really there's a lot of great teams there. Don't get me wrong, but there isn't a definitive, I don't think there's a team out there, that's as good as Dublin's 6 in a row side, or even that Mayo team that nearly won the All-Irelands that year.
That's the gas thing, man. I think
there's no
that Mayo
team
would win.
Yeah.
That Mayo team would win right now.
Like, and on their day, I don't think there's anyone that Dublin can't be.
Agreed.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I do think we could. I think we could beat Armagh in Croke Park in a semi-final, in a final. Donegal are looking very strong. I think we still could do them. Look, don't get me wrong. They'd feel as confident about beating us. They'd be looking at Dublin and thinking, oh yeah, we have a chance of beating them. But I do think it's very even between a lot of teams.
I think the point about this, the preview, and kind of my take on it, is other teams have raised the level, but Dublin definitely have slipped back in terms of our own personal standards. And when I say slip back, it doesn't mean that now suddenly we're behind everybody else. Dublin were so far ahead of everybody else over the last 10 years. Obviously with the exception of 21, 22. But we were so far ahead of people during the late 2010s and 2020, during the 6 in a row years, that us slipping back means that now we're back in with the pack. And 2023, again, was a year where it felt like multiple different teams could win it, and Dublin just won it that year. But you look at 2025, I think any of the teams in Division 1, in my opinion, can win the All-Ireland. Again, I'd be similar to you. I'd probably put Mayo and honestly, maybe even Derry. I just think they're such a mess right now. I just think if they can get it together, I think that they could probably win an All-Ireland, but easier said than done. But I think the league this season is so interesting because it actually is the 8 best teams are in Division 1 now, in my opinion. I don't think there's anybody in Division 2 that I would put above one of the teams in Division 1. So that's going to be fascinating. Yeah, personally, I think we're in there with the chasing pack. We have a chance of winning the All-Ireland, but I think if I had to pick right now to kind of cap it up nicely, I think we will finish about 4th in the Division 1, 4th or 5th. I think we'll win Leinster again. Louth will put up another good fight against us, I'd imagine, but I think we'll still win. And then I think we'll probably, get to the All-Ireland semi-finals, and then I think we might bow out. If I like that, and I'm speaking very early, who knows what way the championship is going to go. We might get the luckiest side of the draw and a nice little route to the All-Ireland final. And then we're only one good performance away.
What teams would you fear the most? And what teams do you think Dublin have to be if they're going to win the All-Ireland?
Good question. Again, it's really, really hard. I think you're looking at, obviously you have to first discuss the champions. You have to first talk about Armagh. But personally, I'd look at Armagh and go like, will they have the same hunger to come back and do it again? I don't know. And the reality is as well, from talking to people that I know from up in Ulster counties, whenever somebody from Ulster wins, every other county in Ulster gets riled up to high heaven, and they want to tear the lumps out of them when the Ulster Championship comes around. So I personally think Armagh have an absolute gigantic target on their back from Tyrone, from Donegal, from Derry, that like they're like watching Armagh celebrate an All-Ireland win, and they're like, right, if Armagh can do it, we can do it. So right now, I personally think the winner of the All-Ireland will come from Ulster next year. I really do. I think it will be probably Donegal. Now, I think Donegal will be the team that we probably need to get through. I would look at Kerry as a threat. Always look at Kerry as a threat. I think last year, Galway, that final felt like a hammer blow, losing that one. I'd be very impressed if they come back from that one. They have the capabilities to do it. It's just whether they can. Kerry, I think them losing Killian Burke, losing Mark O'Connor again for another year, they're huge blows. Because Killian Burke looked really good, and Mark O'Connor would walk into that starting team for Kerry. So losing them is huge, and I think that does knock them back a little bit, but I still think Kerry are right up there. I'd probably put Kerry at 2, Donegal at 1, and probably Dublin at 3 in terms of like a power ranking.
Yeah, I'd probably
Armagh at 4, because I think Armagh might have a bit of a hungover year. They might look like, do you remember how Dublin looked in 2012, where it literally just looked like we'd been on the beer for the whole winter?
Yeah. I'd probably still have Armagh above Dublin. I think physically, and especially like them at their best, probably does beat Dublin if I'm being honest. But I think it is that thing, like you said. Like, I mean, when you look at teams,
can I just say this? They had a good run of form, and I'm not saying that that's indicative of them winning an All-Ireland, but Armagh before the All-Ireland semi-final against Kerry were known as the team that always couldn't get over the line in a big game.
Yeah,
and everybody said
it's
they couldn't
mad how
play
things
the
can
game
change,
out
isn't
of
it?
it. Like, do you know what I mean? Everyone was saying, "Oh, they'll find a way to lose." two results and all of a sudden they're world beaters. Like, so I'm not saying that they're not. I'm not saying that they're not a very good team. They are. And if you look back at clips from when, you know, myself and yourself were on the GA era with Dan Casey and all, like me and you are about saying if they just get that bit of luck, the whole outlook on their team will be different. This is a very good football team. But as the pendulum swung too far one way to say that they were bottlers, the pendulum has swung, in my opinion, a little bit too far the other way to say that they're almost untouchable. They're not. They can definitely be beaten, and I think next year they will be beaten.
Yeah, it's a weird one because they're not the finished article. They're definitely not. And that also actually could mean they could actually be better. Do you know what I mean? And they could become a very, very good team. Or well, they are a very good team, but they could become even better than what they are. Like they haven't won an Ulster title. Obviously, these group of players haven't. And yeah, as you said before, like look, I mean, only twice since the 90s has there been a county that's won back-to-back All-Irelands. That was Dublin 6 in a row and Kerry in 06-07. So it's very, very rare. It's a very, very hard thing to do for a multitude of reasons. I think motivation. I think there's one thing with players. You know, everyone has a target on their back. Everyone wants to beat Armagh. Everyone wants to beat a team to knock out the champion. And you saw Tyrone even themselves as well, like when they won it in 21. I mean, and they probably haven't looked the same since.
And also, it's no surprise that Ulster County hasn't done that. Because as I said, when I was talking to people from Ulster, all the other counties can't wait to get their hands on them to try and humble them after their All-Ireland win. Jim McGuinness's Donegal couldn't do back-to-back. Mickey Hart's Tyrone couldn't do back-to-back.
Yeah.
Even the decade of Ulster teams in the 90s, nobody went back-to-back. So, yeah, they tend to have it rough getting out of Ulster next year, and I think that will be the case for Armagh. Plus, I think McGeaney might have his eyes set on Ulster because it's actually the only thing that's eluded him now as Armagh boss.
Yeah, yeah. Like I suppose, look, at least with Armagh, I think that with Tyrone, a lot of their players started to pull out quite quickly after winning the All Ireland. A lot of their fringe players. That's not happening with Armagh. In fairness, like McGeaney's obviously sticking around as well. So, look, I mean, we'll obviously have to wait and see when it comes to next year. But looking at the Dublin hurlers, look, you know, I think if people thought we were being pessimistic about the footballers, then here comes the Dublin hurlers.
Part 2.
Upgrade. I mean, I don't really know. Like I said, we've discussed the footballers for a large part, so we won't discuss the hurlers too much, to be honest with you. Because largely I don't really know where to begin. Like obviously you got Niall O'Callaghan who came in, and look, we're obviously hoping the best. He done a very, very good job with Nafina. There's no doubt about that. But you were saying to me, it does feel a bit Matty Kenny-esque.
It does, yeah. And like the reality is again, we can't get caught up too much in the present day. I think O'Callaghan has done an absolutely sensational job with Nafina, and what a incredible opportunity he has in front of him right now with this Nafina team, because the All-Ireland Club Hurling Championship has really opened up. With Ballygunner being knocked out all of a sudden, you know, it's a very open-looking Final Four with Sarsfield, Sloughneel and Loughrea and themselves. So he could be coming into this Dublin job off the back of an All-Ireland with Nafina. That's a very realistic possibility. It might not happen, but it might. But Matty Kenny won 2. And he came in and everybody was saying, you know, you need to build this Dublin team around the cooler lads. And immediately he put the likes of Sean Moran in there, he put the likes of Jake Malone. And it definitely was impressive, their performances. Dublin over the last decade, especially since we won the Leinster Championship, for me, especially when we didn't kick on the next year under Dalo and then Dalo left, we've never really been able to recapture the magic that we had under Dalo. I really mean it. Like there was a real connection there between Dalo, the fans, the players. It really felt like we were on a mission. Once that happened, where we didn't reached the promised land. And you saw, I think the big hammer blows where players like Tomas Brady dropped it and went to the football, and all of a sudden it became very much obvious to, you know, the athletes that play football and hurling. If you want to win an All-Ireland, you should play football. And that's been one of the big things, and we've seen it again this year with Owen O'Donnell switching to the footballers. Like our best hurler, in my opinion, along with Donald Burke, our most important. And yeah, he's not going to be around next year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge blow. Like, I mean, as we mentioned like where he could fit in with the footballers, but obviously not having him with the hurlers, like it's such a there's going to be such a hole in that full back line that needs to be filled. And like even looking at last year as well, I mean, like it is weird following the Dublin hurlers at times, because I remember last year there was a similar kind of feeling of negativity a little bit at the start of the year and throughout the league as well. We weren't entirely convinced. Then it went into Leinster and we looked different. Like we were playing brilliant hurling. We were putting it up to teams. We should have beat Kilkenny in Parnell Park. Like we were very, very close to doing that.
Can you just add in there? That was actually a moment where I felt like we were starting to believe in that team. Like I felt felt very 2013-esque that game, up until we lost.
Where does it go wrong though? Because like you look so good in that game. You beat Galway with 14 men for the majority of that match.
Well, they had 14 men.
Well, they had 14 men, but you obviously power on. You beat them as comfortably as we did. Then obviously in the Leinster final, like we get an absolute tanking. And like realistically, that game, it wasn't even a contest. Like it was over after about 10 minutes. Like how does it go from, and I know fair enough, maybe you might say, well, it's Crow Park, you know, it probably suits Kilkenny a little bit more to be playing in the open pitch and everything else. But how does it become, like, how does the gap go that big? When Kilkenny, don't get me wrong, Kilkenny are a good team, but they're certainly not the team they were a couple of years ago. Like the Kilkenny team we beat in 13 was far better than the team we were playing, you know, just a couple of months ago.
Like, because you don't even get to use the excuse of, oh, they've experienced, they've got All-Irelands. I think only TJ Reid and Walter Walsh in that team have an All-Ireland medal, and Owen Murphy. Like they've a handful of players who have an All-Ireland medal, but their best players in the majority, Owen Cody, Mikey Butler, Hugh Lawler, like these lads don't have All-Ireland medals. Like they are a team that we nearly beat in the Leinster Championship at Parnell Park. When Brian Hayes hit that goal, I thought we were going to beat them. I thought like the circumstances were teed up nicely first. I thought we could kick on. Then Owen Cody obviously does his thing. Kilkenny find a way to win, which you have to give them the ultimate credit for doing. But you're right, that Leinster final was tough to watch, man. That was like just immediately, like that goal went in very quickly. I think was it Mossy Keown that scored it pretty much straight away. And immediately sitting in, because I was in Croke Park watching, and I could just see immediately, I was just like, shit, we're in big trouble here, because I could see what was happening. Anything we were firing into the forwards was coming straight back out. Hugh Lawler and Mikey Butler were dominating in that full back line. They were clearing up everything. And then, here's the key. Richie Reid was then sweeping up across the defence. We were allowing Richie Reid to sweep up. Richie Reid was getting his hands on a lot of ball, and he was firing it out to the wings where John Donnelly and Adrian Mullen would be standing. John Donnelly and Adrian Mullen both scored 5 points each, and all of them, they pinged them over from the wings. Just cut the ball from Hugh Lawler or Richie Reid or Mikey Butler, winning it in defence, pinging it out to the wing to them, and they fire over the bar. And that game was like death by 1,000 cuts. That was just like, if that's a UFC bout, the referee is stepping in, TKO. Like, we stop this right now. The reality is we played 2 hurling matches in Croke Park in 2024, and we got annihilated on both occasions. Limerick tore us to shreds in the league. Do you remember that one? Or have you blocked it out?
Yeah,
What
yeah. Before
Limerick,
the Kerry game, yeah.
Limerick scored 330 in that game, and Kilkenny scored 329 in the Leinster final. Now, when you want to talk about Croke Park and the impact that might have, and maybe it isn't a big a deal, how similar those scorelines are makes you, question a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it was just such a heavy defeat. Like, I mean, losing to Kilkenny, fair enough, but like it was the hope. And I remember going into Croke Park that day and the feeling of it and everything else. And I wasn't on the hill, couldn't get a ticket for the hill, unfortunately, that day. But I ended up, I think it was in the Cusack, lower Cusack, and it was just, I don't know, like, I mean, because like we haven't, look, obviously we've been very blessed, like with the footballers. We very rarely ever see the footballers get hammered. Like, obviously we've seen them get beat in Croke Park, but it's been very, very few times we've sat there and watched the footballers get absolutely dominated. The only kind of comparison was 2009, maybe against Kerry, and when
I
they
was
just
there for
absolutely
08 against Tyrone as well in the pouring rain. I was only 7 years old, and that was the first time I'd ever watched Dublin lose like that.
and probably one of the last as well.
Yeah, probably one of there. Crazy stat. Pretty much true.
Yeah, like, and yeah, we were just absolutely all over the place against Kilkenny. To be fair, like we kind of after that we did a few, like we obviously got over the line. I can't even remember who we played in the prelim game. Was it Offaly? No, it wasn't Offaly. Cork played Offaly. We went straight into the quarterfinals. We played Cork, wasn't
it? In what?
In the All Ireland series after the Leinster final.
In 20. Oh yeah, we went
this year,
against Cork.
We went straight in against Cork. Yeah, there was no. I was thinking there. I was like,
we did okay in that game.
We did, yeah, we did. Like, and it wasn't far off. And the funny thing was, I was in Miami when that game. Yeah, I was in Miami when that game was on, and I think it was like 7 a.m. or something of that nature where I was, or something, because it was early enough, obviously, in Dublin. So, like, I'll be honest, I was keeping an eye on the score, like, and everything else, but out before, but like, I was keeping an eye on the score, and then I had a look at the score, and like, with 10 minutes to go, there was like 3 points in it. I was like, right, I'm getting this on now. And then obviously we just couldn't quite get over the line. We missed a couple of chances and everything else, but that is the mad thing, is like this Dublin team, they do have the potential to put in those kind of performances, and you feel like when they're on it, they are a good side, but at the same time, they just have, days where they can be absolutely blown away as well. You just don't know what you're going to get with them.
I just remember looking at the Kilkenny game, the Leinster final, and being like lads, do we have no plan B? Do we have no, like, okay, let's batten down the hatches here? Like, do we have no way of stopping this happening? Surely you must consider that Kilkenny might, come on their A game, and they'll be very difficult to stop. And surely you have a way of, I'm not saying, accept defeat. I respect the way that the lads kept fighting to the end. Mark Rogan got the goal and everything. But, like, come on. Like, don't concede 329. Like, you know what I mean? Like, batten down the hatches a bit. Try and limit what they can score. And I know that's so much easier to say than to actually do, especially when Kilkenny were in the form that they were in. But having seen then that Kilkenny got beaten by Clare in that semi-final, and Wexford, that we drew it, were way off Clare as well. We are far off in All-Ireland right now. Like, we are. We're not in the talks really for an All-Ireland.
No.
And I think even more worrying, if I'm being very pessimistic, I would look at it and say, if I'm in that Offaly camp and I'm wanting a scalp next year, I'm looking at Dublin and saying that this could be a scalp we could take.
Yeah. Like, I mean, what is the expectation for the Dublin Hurlers next year? I mean,
has to be get to a Leinster final. It has to be. And it has to be win Leinster. If we're realistic about taking steps forward, like as me and you were saying, especially over the last 4 years, it has been pretty much exactly the same every year. It's been finish third in Leinster or lose the Leinster final. go out into the quarterfinal, lose to whoever we run into there, and we're out. We tend to either draw or beat Wexford, but we don't lose to Wexford somehow. I don't know why Wexford can't seem to beat us, but we never seem to lose to Wexford.
And they always beat Kilkenny.
And they always beat Kilkenny, yeah. And then we always lose to Kilkenny. We always beat the likes of Antrim, Laois, Westmeath. We tend to do well in those games. And then Galway, usually we lose to. Last year was the exception, but I think that was maybe just because Galway were way off. It was a great performance by Dublin, don't get me wrong, but Galway were definitely not what they have been in previous years. And with Micheál Donoghue coming back in, that's not great for us because he knows a lot about our team and he knows how to set up against us. And I think Galway will be much, much more difficult to beat in 2025 than they were in 2024. And yeah, that one hurt when Donoghue went back to Galway because it was like, what was this?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that was a real kind of kick in the teeth, wasn't it? And I mean, and to be fair, realistically, do we have a better team than Galway and Kilkenny?
No.
I'm not too sure that we do, to be honest. Wexford, I think it's I don't think there's much between them, but you could argue Wexford maybe have a better team as well. So it's like...
Well, Rossiter coming in, he hit the ground running last year. I was pretty impressed by him. They were far off Clare in that quarterfinal, especially when the red card came for Rory O'Connor. Up until that point, it was fairly close, but I see no scenario in which Clare don't win that game. Wexford are kind of similar to ourselves in that we have, it seems to be just this ceiling that we just cannot get through. And as we were saying there is more of an issue with the Dublin Hurlers. Like the big issue with the Dublin Hurlers is because of the success that the footballers have had. It's an unintended side effect. But like me and you, we'll both say this hand on heart, that when there was magic around Dublin hurling was 2011 to 2013 under Dalo, wasn't it? So, and when we really broke through, was when we won the league, the Division 1 title in 2011 against Kilkenny, and we played them off the park. And that was a Kilkenny team that had just fallen short of doing a 5 in a row. At that time was the greatest hurling team of all time. You could argue they still are. Then 2012, they came back to win the All-Ireland again. Like, that was a sensational Kilkenny team. We beat them in the league, and we had players in that team like David O'Callaghan, like Tomas Brady, who actually played for the Dublin footballers and swapped to the hurlers. Conall Keeney, Shane Ryan. These lads actually went the other way. They came from football and came to the hurling because all the buzz is about Dublin hurling. And then in 2013, because bear in mind, when we won that league final against Kilkenny, Dublin were not even Leinster football champions at the time. We'd lost to Meath the previous year. We hadn't won an All-Ireland since 1995 in the football. You actually could argue at the time that Dublin had more of a chance of winning the All-Ireland in hurling than we did in winning the All-Ireland in football because we'd won the league in the hurling. We were right up there with the best. 2013, we put our money where our mouths were. We beat Kilkenny after a replay as well in the Leinster Championship. So not only did we beat them, we proved it wasn't a fluke because we should have beaten them the first time and then beat them the second time. Danny Sutcliffe emerged that day, you remember, with the goal. And when we fell short to Cork in the semi-final, it felt like a crushing blow, but it felt like, you know what, we'll be back. But then by this point, the footballers won in 2011 and they won in 2013. And now it was very obvious we had a golden generation on our hands in the footballers. And then the killer blow for the Dublin hurling team came because from that point on in 2013, Kieran Kilkenny, Cormac Costello, Eric Lowndes, Emmett O'Keneally, Tomas Brady, Con O'Callaghan, they all chose football. And if you were to have had all of them in the Dublin hurling team, Like a lot of people throw around that phrase, oh, he was a better hurler than he was a footballer. But some of them you could genuinely argue they were better at hurling. And that's scary when you see how much they achieved in football. Now, I'm not saying that we would have been the dominant team in hurling for the next 10 years. We definitely wouldn't have been, especially with Limerick coming along the way they did. But there was a period between 2013 after Clare, there was a period from 2012, I would say, to 2019 when then Limerick finally got their grip on it. That 7 years, every year it felt like anybody could win it. And Kilkenny won a couple in 2015 and 2016, where 2014 and 2015, sorry, where I distinctly remember looking at them and being like, I don't think they're that good. I don't think they're that unbeatable compared to what they used to be. And you would look at it and be like, what if? And the next 2 years is key for Dublin. Can we recapture that magic that we had under Dalo with Neil O'Callaghan? I think Neil O'Callaghan is a very safe appointment. I think he will do a very, very good job. I think there's a chance it could be very similar to Matty Kenny. But I do think he should build a team around Nafina. Like he should. Donald Burke, I think try get Liam Rush to come back. Why not? We're going to need somebody big in defence now that O'Donnell's gone. And the Curry brothers as well in the forward line. AJ Murphy. Try get Brian Ryan to come up and play for Dublin. But genuinely, in all seriousness, we need to now go with a new squad and trust in O'Callaghan. It's not going to be over the next 3 years. Like we won't win All Ireland in the next 3 years. But if you look at Limerick, like we know, because people say you sound stupid if you say stuff like this. We beat Limerick in 2011. We beat them.
And we beat them in... Did we beat them in 2016? No, 2015.
2014, 2015, we beat Limerick.
Yeah.
Like, we beat them. This was a Limerick team 3 years away from winning the All-Ireland and then 5 years away from dominating.
Yeah.
So my point is like, once you change or you tweak a few things, it's incredible how quickly it can transform. Like 2010, when we lost to Cork in the men's football, again, it was a classic Dublin, bottled it against Cork. And 5 years later, we'd won 3 All-Irelands and we'd won that 15 All-Ireland and about to grow on to the 6 in a row. Same with the LGFA team. We could not beat Cork to save our lives in the 2010s. We win the All-Ireland in 2017. 4 in a row. Like, it's crazy how quickly it can change. Limerick is the perfect example of that. So my personal opinion is Dublin need to approach this as a 5-year project. Pick O'Callaghan as your coach. Pick a team to build around. And set it as the intention that within 3 years we should win Leinster and within 5 years we should win the All-Ireland. That's the plan.
If you had to call it for Dublin next year in hurling, how do you think the season goes?
Very difficult, man. Very difficult. It's a toss-up between ourselves and Wexford as to who gets out in third place. I think Galway will be back. I think Kilkenny will be good too.
Yeah.
I'm going to say we finish third, but I'm not that confident, man. Really amn't.
And realistically, like we'll probably
and then we go out in the quarterfinal, because
against
whoever comes out of Munster.
Yeah, you know, and it doesn't matter who. Like any of the 5 teams, I think, to be honest with you, would beat us from Munster. You know, and especially, I know we'd probably look at Tipperary, who looked really poor last year, but if they finished third in Munster next year with Cork, Clare and Limerick in there, they've obviously done something right, you know what I mean? So,
exactly. It will have meant that they've turned the corner.
Yeah, exactly. And the same obviously applies with Waterford as well. So, I'd probably have to agree with you there. And I think that feels nearly like the best case scenario, because like Galway can't be that bad again. Like they cannot be that bad again.
So bad.
We can never beat Kilkenny. No matter what we do, we can never beat them. But yeah, look, that's very much the preview. But before we finish up, prediction to win the All-Ireland in both football and hurling.
Oh, wow. On the 9th of December.
That's it, yeah, that's it. I'm putting you hang me out to dry right here now. That's what I'm gonna do before I embarrass myself later in the year.
Cork for the hurling, Donegal for the football.
There we go. There we are. There we are. So yeah, do let us know your opinions, your thoughts on the Dublin footballers and the hurlers in the comments down below. Make sure to check out On Clithe when you get a chance as well. And yeah, hit the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll speak to you all again.